Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel So Fly Styles. My name is Sofiyat. So in today's tutorial, we are going to be making this dress. Yeah, I know you have seen this dress before. It's a trendy style actually. So ever since the design came out, I've liked it for myself, but for some reasons I've not had the time to make it. But now I have the time and I'm like, why not? So I'm going to be showing you how I was able to achieve this contoured fit with just my basic bodice. So for the sake of those who are going to be seeing my video for the first time, I'm going to be taking you guys through how I draft my basic bodies to achieve this contoured fit and flat zipper part and everything. So if this is something you would like to see, do stay with me till the end. And if this is your first time on my channel, welcome and thank you for stopping by. I promise you're going to learn something new. So without wasting much of our time, let's get started with this tutorial. So to start with, I'm gonna head to mark out some lines here. As you can see, from the top here, I ruled the margin line, which is going to be my shoulder line, and all my vertical measurement will be starting from there. On the side, I have my margin line there, and all my horizontal measurement will be starting from there as well. Also, I divided my pattern paper into two equal parts. This is because I want to draft the front and the back piece together. You can do yours separately, but I like to do mine together so that you'll be able to see as I am doing it. So the next line that I have here is my bust line. And to get my bust line, all I did was divide my bust by 6, then add extra 3 inches. 3 inches because I want to slope my shoulder by 1.5. If you want to slope your own shoulder by 1 inch, all you have to do is divide your bust round by 6, then add extra 2.5 inch. Mine gave me 9 inch after I added 3 inches extra. So the next line I have here is my shoulder to waist measurement for the back. Note that this part of the pattern paper is going to be for the back piece. So my shoulder to waist measurement for the back is 16 inches. Then from the waist, I marked my waist to hip point measurement, which is 9 inches. Then the next one, the last one I have is my shoulder to knee measurement of 42 inches. So if you're wondering why did I extend my measurement down to the knee, this is because the way I did it, it goes beyond my hip point. So I will need to draft the pattern down to my knee. You are going to understand that by the time we are sewing it. So for the front piece, my bust line is there, and this line here is my shoulder to waist measurement for the front. So for the front, my shoulder to waist measurement is 80 inches. So that means I have 2 inches difference between my front and the back waist length. Then I mark my waist to hip point measurement. So to get my knee level for the front, all I did was measure my waist to knee for the back and project it from the waist downward for the front. I hope you understand. This is the reason why I did this is because of the difference that I have between my front waist length and the back waist length. Okay, don't worry, this difference will take care of itself by the time we take the bust start and start sewing. Now, the next thing I'm going to impute is my shoulder width measurement. My shoulder is 15.5. 15.5 divided by 2, I mark that on the shoulder line and on the bust line. Then I'm going to take my straight ruler to square it out. The next thing is to impute my shoulder slope, but to do that, I will need to impute my standard neck width measurement of 3 inches. So if you're on the plus side, you can do 3.25 for your neck width. Then from the shoulder line, I'm coming down by 1.5 here, then connect it into my neck width with a straight line to form my shoulder slope. So the next thing now is to create my armhole curve. To do that, all I have to do is to impute my bust divided by 4 on this bust line. My bust is 36. 36 divided by 4 gave me 9 and I marked it. So now I'm going to get the midpoint of this line here. Then I'm going to take my curve ruler to connect it into my bust divided by 4 point. The next thing now is to go to my hip line. On the hip line, I'm going to project my hip divided by 4. Now, the hip I'm working with is 46 inches. Usually my hip is 42.5, but because I'm going to be wearing my padded height under this clothes, so it took my hip from 42.5 to 43. So after that, I'm now going to connect whatever I have into the bust divided by 4 point with a broken line like this. Alright, so the next thing now is to work on my zip bulge. To do that, I like to eliminate my zip bulge by 1 inch. So the minimum you can do here is half of an inch, and the maximum you can do here is 1.25. But for me, I like to use 1 inch. So now on the waistline, go in by 1 inch from the center back, then use a straight ruler to connect it into your neck point like this, and to connect it into the hip, I like going up from my hip by 1 inch before I connect it. This is totally optional. I just don't like having anything pointy around there. That is why I like to go up there by 1 inch before I connect it. So now the next thing we are going to do is to go to my knee line and project my hip divided by 4 measurements on there. Okay, you know what I have on my hip line is my hip divided by 4. So that same thing, I'm going to mark it on the knee line, and I'm going to use a broken line to connect it from the knee line into the hip line like so. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to impute now is to impute my dart line for the back. To do that, I'm going to need my nipple to nipple measurement as a guide, and I'm going to divide it by 2, which gives me 3/3. So I'm marking it from after the zip butch point like this. Now I'll need to extend this point to the hip line and to my bust line. So whatever you do here, make sure that you have a straight line that goes from the hip to the bust line and pass through your bust point your bust span divided by 2 points. Okay. So the next thing I want to do now is to work on my bust contour and shape the side of our gown. So the first thing we are going to do now is to go up from our knee by 4 inches. This is necessary because if I shape the dress directly on my knee, I won't be able to walk. So anytime you are doing a straight skirt or pencil gown or straight gown, please always go up from your knee level by 4 inches. That is where we are going to be shaping our knee, not directly on the knee. Okay. Now from the center back here, on the above 4 inches above the knee, I'm going to go in by 1.5 inches. The minimum you can do here is 1 inch. But now to connect it into my hip point, I'm not going to go down by 2 inches like this, then I'm going to connect it straight. Please, I'm making this particular basic pattern brief because I already have a detailed tutorial on it on the channel. So if you would like to see a detailed tutorial, I'm going to put the link in the description box. So on the side here, from where the broken line is touching my above knee, I'm going to go in by 1.5 inch as well. Now, the reason why I'm doing 1.5 inch for this side is because I had already done 1.5 inch for the center back. If I did 1 inch from the center back, I have the grace of doing 2 inches here. But if I should do 2 inches here now, while I have done 1.5 inch for the center back, I may not be able to walk. Okay, that is why I chose to do 1.5 to shape this side of my gown. All right, now to connect it into the hip line like I did for the center back, I came down by 1.5 and connected there. Now on the knee line, you are going to measure whatever you use to shape your skirt on the above knee, mark the same thing and connect it with a straight line. Okay, if your gown is longer than mine, maybe it get to the knee length, so what's the same way you shape it on the knee line now, it's the same thing you are going to shape it on the skirt or gown length. Okay, now we are done with the back. Let's move to the front. So for the front, the first thing I'm going to be imputing is my shoulder width measurement divided by 2. So my shoulder width is 15.5. 15.5 divided by 2 gave me 7.75. So now I'm marking it like this. So now to do my shoulders too, I'm going to come down here by 1.5. Then I'm going to mark my neck width measurement of 3 inches. So if you use 3/4 for your back neck width, please use 3/4 for your front neck width like this. And I'm going to connect it with a straight line to form my shoulders too. Then to create my armhole cuff, I will need to impute my bust divided by 4 on the bust line. Then I'm going to get the midpoint of this line. Then from there, I'm going to come in by half of an inch. Okay, now I'm going to take my curve ruler to connect the 3 points together like this. After that, the next thing I'm going to do is to go to my hip line and project my hip divided by 4. So the hip I'm working with is 46. 46 divided by 4 gave me 11.5. So I'm just going to mark it like this and connect it into my bust line. All right, with a broken line. Please use a broken line. But the next thing I'm going to be doing now is to impute my dart line for the front. So again, I'm going to need my nipple to nipple divided by 2. So my nipple to nipple is 7.5. 7.5 divided by 2 gave me 3.75. So I'm marking that on the bust line, on the waistline, and on the hip line. And I'm going to connect it with a straight line like this. Note that I started marking from the margin line. Okay, there's a margin line there. So the next thing I'm going to be imputing now is to create my above knee, just that I'll be able to shape the side of my gown. Okay, 4 inches above the knee. That is what I have just marked now. So the next I'm going to be imputing now is my hip divided by 4 measurements. I'm going to be projecting it on the above knee and on the knee line like this. Okay, I'm marking exactly what I have on my hip line presently. I'm marking it on the above knee line and on the knee line. Then I'm going to connect it with a broken line like this. So now I'm going to shape the side of my dress. Now, if you used 1 inch or 2 inches or 1.5 inch to shape the side of your back piece, you're going to use exactly the same measurement to use to shape the side of your front piece as well. So just measure what you have to shape in case you forget. For me, I used 1.5. So that 1.5, I'm going to mark it from the broken line inward like this, then mark it on the above knee and on the knee, then connect it with a straight line. Then to connect from the above knee to the hip, from the hip point, I came down by 2 inches like this, and I'm connecting it with a straight line. Alright, again, if you want a detailed tutorial on how to draft these basic bodies, it is already on the channel. You can click the link that is appearing on the screen now to watch it. Alright, so the next thing we want to do now is to shape the side of our dress and create our dart. So to do that, you need to measure what you have on your waistline for the front and for the back. Please measure down to the broken line. And for the back, I measure from after the zip pouch down to the broken line. Okay. So for the front, I have 10.25, and for the back, I have 9.25. So I'm going to add the two together, which gives me 19.5. Okay. Now, I don't know if I said it, but my real waist measurement, I didn't reduce it by anything, is 28 inches. So what I'm supposed to have on this pattern paper is half of my real waist measurement, which is what? Which is 14 inches. But now the total of what I have on the pattern paper is 19.5. So that means I have excess on the pattern paper that I need to take out. So to know how much excess we have on the pattern paper, you're just going to do the measurement that you have on the pattern paper, which is 19.5 for me. Then I'm going to minus half of my real waist measurement from it. So after I press my calculator, I did the subtraction. So I realized that the excess that I have on the pattern paper is 5.5 inches. So this 5.5 inches is what we are going to use to shape the side of our dress and to create our dart. Okay. If you plan on reducing your waist by 2 inches, maybe you want to snatch your waist or cinch your waist. So instead of you using your real waist measurement to do this calculation, so in my own case, maybe I want to reduce my waist to 26 inches. So instead of me using 28 as my real waist measurement, I'll be using 26, okay? So now, to create our side shaping, the first thing you are going to need is to divide the excess that you have on the pattern paper by 4. So the excess that I have on the pattern paper is 5.5. So 5.5 divided by 4 gave me 1.375. So 1.375 on the tape is just 3 lines after 1 inch mark. That is the small line before 1.5 inch mark. I hope you understand. It is not up to 1.5. It is that line before 1.5 inch mark. That is 1.375. Or to save yourself the stretch, you can just approximate it to like 1.5. So from the side of the pattern paper like this, from the broken line, I came in by 1 and 1.375. Then for the back piece as well, I'm going to do the same thing. Please note that you are going to measure this value from the broken line inward. Then you are going to connect it to your bust point and to your hip with the curvy part of your ruler. So now that we are done with our side shaping, the next thing we want to do now is to measure what we have on the waistline again. But this time we are going to measure down to our side shaping point. So I measured for the front, I have 8.875, and I measured for the back, I have 7.875. Okay, after I added the two together, it gave me 16.75. So, but my half of my real waist measurement is 14 inches. So after I did the subtraction, I realized that I still have 2 3/4 to take out from the pattern paper. So this 2 3/4 is what we are going to use to create our dart for the front and our dart for the back. So now to get my data allowance for the front and back, what I'm going to do is this new excess that I have on the pattern paper, which is 2.75, I'm going to divide it by 5. So after dividing it by 5, it gave me 0.55. So now to now know how much I will need for the front dart allowance, all I'm going to do is this 0.55, I'm going to multiply it by 3. So after I press calculator, it gave me 1.65, which I rounded up to like 1.75, that is 1 3/4. You can round it down to like 1.5 if you have similar number, but I prefer to round it up for the front because I want more allowance for the front. While for the back, it gave me, after I did 0.55 times 2, gave me 1.1. So I rounded it down to 1 inch. This is because I don't need so much data allowance for the back piece. But what is important is that my data allowance for the front and for the back, after I added it together, it gave me 2.75, which is the excess that I have on the pattern paper. I hope you understand it. So now let's impute our dart. So for the front, we calculated 1.75. So this 1.75, that is 1 3/4, I am now going to divide it into 2. Okay. So after dividing it into 2, I am now going to put the midpoint on the line like this. I hope you understand. So just divide your whatever dart allowance you measure for the front, divide it into 2 and mark it on both sides of your dart line like this. Okay. Now to connect it down, I'm connecting it straight into my hip line. This is how I like to do mine. But to connect it up, pardon my manners, I forgot to impute my shoulder to nipple point measurement. I didn't include the line. So please remember to put it when you are drafting your own pattern. Okay, shoulder to nipple line. Mine is 10.5. So from my shoulder to nipple line, I am now going to come down by 1.5 inch like this. Then I'm going to connect it into my waist to create my dart. I hope you understand what I'm saying. From your shoulder to nipple line, on the bust band divided by 2 points, go down by 1.5 to connect your dart for the front. Okay, the dart allowance I calculated for the back is 1 inch, so that means I'm going to do half inch on both sides of my dart line. So to connect it down, I'm connecting it straight into the hip. While to connect it up, I go up by 6 inches from my waistline to connect the back dart. So now I am done creating my dart and shaping the side of my dress. So if you measure what you have on the waistline now, excluding the dart, you are going to have, for the front and back, you are going to have exactly half of your waist measurement. Mine is 14 inches. Then another thing you are going to notice is that when you measure for the front, it is a little bit bigger than what you have for the back. Okay, so even if it's by 1/4 inch, this is because of our tummy. This method creates allowance for our tummy to breathe. All right, so the next thing we are going to be doing now is to shape, like I'm just going to reshape this part of my pattern with my clearer marker so that you can see it clearly. Then the next thing we want to do now is to take care of the difference that we have between our front waist length and the back waist length. So for me, my back waist length is 16 inches, while that of the front is 18 inches. So that means I have 2 inches difference. So this 2 inches difference is what I'm going to use to create my bust dart. So from the nipple line on the side seam, I'm going to go down by 2 inches. Then from this point, I'm going to go away from there by 1 inch. Then I'm going to use my straight ruler to connect it into the 2 inches mark. Okay, the 2 inches is from the difference that I have between my front waist length and the back waist length. Okay, yours can be more than that. So the next thing now is to fold in the dart. So to fold in the dart, I will need to separate my pattern paper like this so that it will be easy for me. Okay, so now I'm going to fold this one on top of my nipple line like this. So just take your time when you're folding it. It is not going to relax, but you just need to hold it down until you are able to reshape your side line. Okay. So take your time when doing this. We are not trying to close it permanently. We are just trying to get a shape for our bust dart, okay? So now, after I've been able to fold it, I'm now going to go in with my straight ruler to reconnect the line. By the time you fold your hole, you will notice that the line is no longer straight, and you are going to need your straight ruler to reconnect it like I did. So now I'm going to need my tracing wheel to trace out this my side seam line on the part that I folded in. Okay, I'm just using my tracing wheel to create dotted line on it. So after I was done, after you're done, you'll be able to see, like, see and feel the dotted line. So just take your pencil and your straight ruler to draw out the line following the dotted line your tracing will create. So this is going to be our bust dart. Okay. So after creating the bust dart, if you measure what you have from the waist to the bust point for the back like this, and measure what you have for the front like this, excluding the dart, you will have exactly the same measurement. So this way, when you are sewing, there won't be any issue like one is longer than the other. Okay, the bust dart is already taking care of that. So the next thing I want to do now is to work on my neckline. So for my neck width, I'm doing 3.5 inches. Okay, this is the front piece, and for the back, for the front neck depth, I'll be doing 3.5 inches as well. Though I would advise you to do something like 4 inches, because the 3.5 inch I did was actually getting to my neck. It was really high and I was not feeling very comfortable. Though I like it like that, but I would advise you to do something as much as 4 inches for your neck depth for the front. So for the back, I'm sticking with the same 3.5 inches neck width. If you use 3.5 inch neck width for the front, please use the same thing for the back. Okay, whatever you use for your neck width for the front is what you are going to use for the back. So for the neck depth for the back, I did 1.5 inches because I don't want anything too low at the back. So I'm just using my curve ruler to create the neck curve. So now I am just going to separate my pattern paper so that I'll be able to work on them individually. And I'm going to be starting with the back piece. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is to tighten the zip area. What we are about to do will help us eliminate zip bulge further. And to do that, from the waistline on the zip bulge line, I came up by 1/2 inch and went down by 1/2 inch. Then I'm using it to create a dart into my waist on the side. Okay, so now I'm going to cut it open. I'm going to cut from the one up, okay, from the one up, not the dart that is down. Then I'm going to place it on top of each other like this. Please, when you are placing it, make sure that the waist point, I mean the one on the center back and the one on the side, they are resting on top of each other. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So make sure they are resting nicely on top of each other. Then I'm using my paper tape to secure it. Now I won't have anything like zip bulge on my dress. Now, you will notice that our dart has tilted. It is no longer straight. So I'm going to use the dart line down and project it upward to get my perfect straight line again. Now I'm going to redraw my waistline and my dart. Now for the dart, I'm going to go up by 6 inches like I did earlier. And I'm going to make sure I have half inch on both sides of my new dart line like this, and I'm going to connect it into my 6 inches mark up to create my new dart. Okay, this is going to be my new dart for the back. At this point, I didn't know my camera had turned off while I was drafting, so now I'm going to explain what I did while the camera was off. So now from on the neckline, from after the zip bulge line, this is the back piece. I came in by 1/2 inch, then I connected it straight into my waist with a straight line. The essence of this is just so to eliminate gaping at the back of our neck when we are done. Then after I did all this, I noticed that it is affecting my bust divided by 4 measurements on the bust line. So I measured the excess that I'm going to cut off, then I replace it on my bust line, then withdraw my side seam. Then I had to withdraw my armhole cuff again. So the next thing I did was to pinch my shoulder. So I pinched my shoulder by 0.75, that is one small line before 0.5 inch mark. Then I marked that from the shoulder slope downward on the neckline. Then I connected it into my shoulder point like this with a straight line. You will notice that I now have two lines on my shoulder slope now. Yes, that is the shoulder pinching I did, and I didn't use up to half of an inch to achieve that. The essence of this shoulder pinching is just so that when you wear your clothes, the chest area, especially at the front, it is not going to be looking bulky or like you have gaping excess there. Okay, it is a basic. We are using a basic pattern. The dress is a basic dress, but at the same time, it does not have to look basic when you wear it. So now I'm going to be doing the shoulder pinching for the front piece as well. Remember I said I use 0.75 to pinch my shoulder for the back. That's the same value I'm going to be using to pinch my shoulder for the front as well. And note that I'm marking it from my neck point downward on the neckline, the cuff that I draw. Yes, it is on that cuff you are going to be drawing your shoulder pinching. Then connect it into your shoulder point with a straight line to create another shoulder slope. Okay, so now I am done with all of that. The next thing we are going to be doing now is to determine the length of the upper part of the dress. You will notice that the upper part of the dress is fitted while the down part is gathers. So I want to mark out how low do I want the fitted part to be. So for that, I came down from my hip line by 5 inches. Okay, now I'm going to connect it with a straight line, and I'm going to mark the same thing on both the front and the back piece. Then I'm going to cut it out. Now, I'm gonna ahead to cut out my pattern on fabric. I'm just going to take you through the sewing allowance I did now. So on the neckline, the shoulder, the armhole, I did half-inch sewing allowance. Even the hem, I did half-inch sewing allowance. While on the side, I added only 1.5 inch sewing allowance. Okay, so don't forget to notch your hip line, your waistline, your bust, and your darts. Okay, now don't forget to notch the center front as well. So for the back piece, I did 1 inch zip allowance, okay? So the neckline, shoulder, armhole, and the hemline, I did half-inch sewing allowance. While on the side, the same thing I did for the front, I did 1.5 inch. So the next thing I want to do on this pattern now is to alter it a little bit. When I was drafting this pattern, I had this in mind that I would put sleeve. But now I decided not to put sleeve, so I need to alter this shoulder a little bit, okay? Now, on my pattern paper, from the shoulder point, I marked in 1 inch, okay? I mark it on the pattern paper, and I'm going to connect it into my armhole, and I'm connecting it into the half-inch sewing allowance I added to the fabric. Please, you should do this on your pattern paper instead of doing it on the fabric. I ought to have done it, but because I didn't think it through when I was drafting the pattern, that is why I'm going through this stress now. So please do it on your pattern before you cut it out on your fabric. And when you are doing it on the pattern, you're just going to reblend your armhole into like normally on the pattern paper. But because I've already added sewing allowance to my fabric, that is why I'm blending this 1 inch into the half-inch sewing allowance I added to the armhole area. So that is it for the back. So for the front, on my pattern paper from the shoulder point here, I'm going to be marking 1 inch, please, on the pattern paper, excluding the sewing allowance you added to the armhole. So now I am going to connect it the same way I connected the back into the armhole. Please ignore what I'm doing here. You need to connect it into your half-inch sewing allowance. If you are doing it on the pattern paper, this is how you are going to do it. But if you are doing it after you have cut your fabric too, please connect it into the half-inch you added to the armhole. But if you are doing it on your pattern paper, what I have just done for this front piece is what you are going to do. Then from my bust line, I came up by 3.5 inch and mark it on this new armhole that I that I marked, that I created. Then from that 3.5 inch mark, I came up by 1/4 inch and came down by 1/4 inch. I'm just trying to create like 1/2 inch dart on this armhole. Okay, so now I am now connecting it into the 3.5 inch mark I marked initially. I connected it into my nipple to nipple point like this. So to now know the length of my dart, this dart, I marked 3.5 inch from the armhole. I hope I'm not confusing you with anything. Okay, this dart length can be as much as 4 inch, but just make sure that whatever you mark is not getting to your nipple to nipple divided by 4 points. So folding this dart, the total dart I did here is just 1/2 inch, and that is because we have altered our armhole, so there's possibility that this is going to gape. So to eliminate that gaping, that is why I'm taking this 1/2 inch. And because I didn't cut so much, it's just 1 inch I cut out from the shoulder. So 1/2 inch, that is okay. All right. So now I have withdrawn my armhole on the pattern paper. Now I can cut it out again. Please, by the time you fold in your dart, you will notice that the neckline, the 1/2 inch sewing allowance you added to the neckline has increased. So please adjust it accordingly and make sure that the center front on the paper is resting directly on the center front on the fabric. Okay, please make sure you pin your cloth very well. And you won't have any reason to do all of this if you do it directly on your pattern paper before you cut it out on the fabric. The reason why I'm going through this stress is because I had already cut out my pattern, my fabric before I thought about not putting sleeve on the clothes. So now I'm just checking what I have on the shoulder for the back to be sure I have the same thing on my shoulder for the front, so I don't have anything like one is longer than the other when I am sewing. Again, check all your sewing allowances, make sure it is the same. If it is much, if you have anywhere that is much, please reduce it. And make sure your center front for the front of the pattern paper is resting on the center front on the fabric. So now I have adjusted everything that needs adjustment. So now I'm going to cut out my new armhole. Please notice the way I cut it. I cut it and blend it into the 1/2 inch I added to the armhole area. Okay, so now I am done with the alteration that I need to do. It is time for me to cut out facing for the front and facing for the back. Now, on my facing, I didn't put anything, I didn't interface it or whatsoever. I just carry my plain fabric, fold it into two, and I'm going to put it on that to cut it out now. Now, for the measurement for the facing, honestly, I didn't use any measurements. I just pick out pieces of fabric that I have, and I'm just cutting it out. The same thing for the back piece. You are going to see it when I'm done. So now, this video is already long. I didn't intend that this video is going to be this long. So I wanted to combine both the pattern drafting and the sewing together. But as it stands, the pattern drafting and the cutting is already taking like over 30 minutes. So that is why I'm going to be separating the sewing tutorial in another video. So, and I'm going to make sure that I upload the sewing tutorial as soon as tomorrow. Okay, so I'm not going to keep you guys waiting for long. So if you are going to be recreating this for yourself, make sure you have your pattern ready. So by tomorrow, we are going to start sewing. So thank you guys for your support as always. I'm going to see you guys in the part 2 of this tutorial where we are going to be sewing everything and creating the slant that is on the dress. Yes, I did the slant on the dress after I had joined the upper part together completely. We are going to see it by the time I upload the sewing tutorial. So thank you guys. See you soon.